remember seeing Josh at the table, and everybody around town was like, oh shit, he got the Guns N' Roses gig. And it was like, oh man, that's the heaviest gig you can ever get. The Guns N' Roses, like that's so, and I remember going up to him like, dude, well, shit, you're like the heavy, man. You got the Guns gig. And he was like, oh, I can't talk about it, because that was like, he signed an NDA and he couldn't talk about anything and what was going on. So after that, I remember we were I think we were just doing a random tour with Primus. It was like for the Rhinoplasty album or something. And Josh had called Bucket and said, hey, dude, I think you should try out for Guns. Bucket was like, oh, okay, and then I guess he had he went and met with Axl, hung out, did some stuff with them, and Axl was, saying he wanted to change the sound more like a different sound and do some different shit. And Bucket was super into it. And Bucket was just like, man, this is rad, it's like so crazy. Like, he's so rad. And it's just like, it could be really cool. And I was like, oh, that's awesome. And Josh is a great drummer. It's going to be good for you type of thing. And then I went on tour with Primus in Australia. We were doing a little Australian tour, and I had called Bucket just to see how he was doing. And he was like, dude, Josh just quit. You should play in this. And I was like, you mean in Guns? He was like, yeah. And I was like, oh, that's kind of heavy. Okay. So he was trying to push me into that thing, and I guess telling Axl, and he gave Axl some tapes or something or whatever, because I think Axl had already seen me play. And he knew Primus was kind of like a musicians band, so I think he knew I could play the drums. So he was kind of interested in it. And so I was like, okay, well, when I get off this tour, maybe I'll check it out. And then I got home, I don't know, 3 or 4 months went by, didn't hear anything. And then I got a call, I think it was from Tommy Stinson or whatever, and he was like, hey, man, we need a drummer. What are you doing? And I was like, he was just like, everybody wants this gig. Kenny Aronoff's knocking on the door, but, Buckethead says we should check you out. Like, who the fuck are you? Because Tommy was that kind of punk rock, attitude thing. And then he found out I played with Tom Waits, and he loved Tom Waits. So then he started being cooler to me. He was kind of like, and, since then we're friends and everything. I love Tommy and whatever. But I remember at first he was just like, okay, who the fuck are you? You're going to come down and check this out? What are you doing? Like that kind of a thing. I was like, well, yeah, I'll come and check it out, but I don't know if I want to jam on Sweet Child of Mine and, and those kind of things. I'm not going to come down to audition. And, they were kind of taken back, and they're like, well, what do you mean? This is like Guns N' Roses, dude. And I was like, well, that's cool and everything, but I don't know. I just don't, okay. I mean, what, I'm going to come and just jam, these songs. I know them, whatever. Who cares? I wasn't trying to be a dick, but I was really like, well, I could go either way. I mean, I didn't really care at that point. I was getting kind of burned out on playing anyways, because I had just been on tour, and I was just, I don't know. I thought maybe I was better than I was or something. I don't know. So I just kind of blew it off in a way. And then they called and said, why don't you come down to the studio and just play on some tracks, some of the tracks that we have, and we'll just check you out.